Father, you turn up.
papacy, how its evolution came to be. We shall try to finish it today. Last time we started, but it ended up in question and answering, no? And let us little bit, as I told you, don't imagine the papacy was as it is today 2000 ago. No. It started, just as fragile as any other community or any other disciple of Jesus. And the first popes, almost, I think until the 3rd century, all of them were martyred. And when somebody is elected as pope, then it is sure that he is called for martyrdom during the time of the persecution. And the community was, functioning what we call in secret. Especially those community, especially in Rome, the community was functioning in the catacombs. You know what is catacomb? Underground cemeteries, no? And they were functioning, this community was functioning in catacombs. And there wasn't any splendor, monuments like Vatican or St. John Lateranum or anything. You can see the first house in Rome where the Christians, celebrated their Eucharist. I don't know whether you have seen that. That is preserved even now. That is the Basilica of St. Clement. Whenever you get a chance, you go to visit that. And that is so beautiful. And so how the Christians, they started. That tells the grandeur of the history. That is just nearby the Colosseum. Just nearby the Colosseum. It's called the Basilica of the St. Clement. And it's a 3-storied church. When we enter, that is on the door, on the ground level when we enter there is a basilica, and that basilica is called Basilica of St. Clement. Clement was the third successor. Peter, Anacletus, and I think it was Peter, Linus, Anacletus, and St. Clement. Yeah, he was the 4th pope. And
Peter, Linus, and who else?
Anacletus.
Anacletus.
Yeah. And see that basilica is owned by now, I think, the Dominican friars. It was that. And I think in 1940s, somebody began excavating under the basilica, and they found out even a bigger church than the basilica built now, what we see underneath. A bigger basilica, a bigger church. That means that church underneath it had 5 or 2 aisles on the each side and center. That means 5 fortunes. And upon the present basilica has only 3. And again, that was built. The underneath basilica was built in medieval times, during the splendor of our church. Then again, digging, excavations made, and they found it again underneath another building. Really, another building, and that was houses of the 1st century Roman houses, and just nearby, that was a kind of houses nearby, and nearby there is a temple of Mitra. That is the pagan god Mitra. So these Christians very wisely selected the churches, the houses nearby the Mitra temple. You know why? They selected very wisely near a temple, a house.
To avoid suspicion.
Yes. People, some of the people, suppose, 2 or 3 families come together and then gather together in some places, if that is noticed, it's very clear, easy for notice, no? If it is nearby the temple, that's okay, because people think, oh, they are going for the temple. They are going to the temple. Just very near. Here it is the temple, and just there is a small road, and then here are the houses. Only this much distance. So, and they close in the house, and then they made the Eucharist. That was the Eucharist, we can say, what we see in Acts of the Apostles.
That was a pagan temple?
That was a pagan temple. And even that statue is kept intact now.
Really?
Yes.
The pagan temple.
Yeah, the pagan temple and the statue of Mithra.
And Mithra is what? A god of what?
It is it's a Persian cult, secret cult.
Persian cult.
Yeah, Persian secret cultic practice there. At that time there were many secret cults were going on in Rome. And that was one of that Mithra. Okay, I don't explain all those things, because this is what the Christian history starting from that small house. And it was the beginning of papacy even, I would say. But slowly it began. After the persecution, I have already told you that after the persecution, Constantine favored Christianity and then began to, donate acres and acres of land and money and things like that to pay Pope, and made him a great figure. I told you some of the Constantinian administration, gave privileges to Pope, like for example, becoming an arbitrator or judge to settle the cases. When Pope, the Bishop of Rome, settles a case, it had a legal validity.
So you're saying that the Emperor Constantine,
Only
his decree, the Pope...
No, not by his decree, no. There is nothing like decree. It is until the persecution ends, with the Constantine. That was simple as it is, as it was. Nothing, he had, of course, as a bishop, he had, the authority in his community, like what?
In Rome.
In Rome, and what? What kind of authority? Authority, moral authority.
Yeah.
Or spiritual authority, okay? Suppose, I have only in the community, Father Brome. What authority he has?
Church?
That means authority as a priest, as a spiritual authority or moral authority over you, no?
Yes.
Anything more? No. Suppose he asks you, okay, Joe, you bring tomorrow $20,000, otherwise you are going to be expelled the church. Then he said, if you can, you do it.
We'll go to church jail.
I said 20,000 because to honor Joe. If it is Glenn, I would say only 10,000. Okay. Because he is our leader, no? Joe. Okay. So, but he says, oh my dear parishioners, so we need this much of work to be done. So I invite all of you contribute generously. And that has an authority. That means a spiritual or moral authority. And then we contribute willingly. But suppose the state say, you get a letter from the state, okay, your electricity bill is 1,200. There is no other chance you have to pay, no? You have to pay. So that is the difference. But that's my, at that time, Pope had no legal or these kind of authorities. What's called the civil authorities, but only a spiritual and moral authority. But after Constantine, when Constantine made appointed bishops kind of arbitrator, to settle the cases, or something like that, then his decision becomes binding by law. That's a kind of an evolution, no?
Yeah, but how did it happen, Father? I mean, something must have happened where from one day to the next.
That means, by Constantinian delegation of power, he gets, for example, the first maybe what we can, kind of a legal authority, what we see in the papacy would be by the Constantinian delegation. This kind of thing. Suppose the Pope decides on a case, settlement of a case in favor of something, and the state civil law accepts it. Excuse me.
Because Constantine said so.
Yes, that means the state accepts it. Constantine means, the representative of the state.
That put some of the burden back of handling the Christians back on the Christians.
Yeah. Not only of that is not only of the Christians. No. Not only of the Christian. Yeah, anybody. Suppose somebody, calls to the help of the bishop, then he comes in. And then, it's something like a kind of a semi-judgment, judge, a court.
That's the difference. That's actually the union of church and state that's opposite to the separation. That was...
Yeah, that anyway, that much did not happen at that time. But, that way, slowly, this idea that, the church and the state, a kind of joining together, helping each other, starting from Constantine onwards. Yes.
That is something similar that is like what is going on in England and other places now where large Muslim populations exist. The authorities are basically turning over even civil judgments over to the imams in those neighborhoods.
That is some of the Muslim what's called governments. For example, in Iran, that what's called the spiritual leader could be said. He is the most powerful one in Iran. Even he is more powerful than the president, the highest authority in Iran.
Yeah, the president serves at the
Behest.
pleasure.
pleasure of the
Yeah, that's why this is kind of that's called theocracy. What do you mean by theocracy? Theocracy means the state is controlling the religion too.
And if you distill it down, every government is a theocracy.
And it was, I think that is one of the themes, favorite themes of Glenn, and he's speaking on that. How the governments are trying to be, at least, this is very interesting. There was kind of course, in the beginning, the state was controlling even everything, during the time of persecution even, some of the emperors, for example, Emperor Caracalla or Emperor, Hadrian, all these people, they, even demanded from the people what's called the emperor cult. They should not only obey the rule of the state, but they demanded kind of veneration of the emperors. And that was connected with an idea that if don't do that, they are, what's called charged of treason, because they are enemies of the state.
So they were considered like gods also.
Yeah, that's why the emperors were considered like God.
as the hymn says, all on earth thy scepter claim.
Because, the theocratic understanding, the idea is that, God is the all-powerful, He is the source of power. And He delegated His power to the state authority. And he is the authority now, everywhere. And whatever the authority others get, it is that delegation by the emperor. And that is called theocracy. And that is the same thing later the popes demanded. For example, Pope Gregory VII or Boniface. No, that's the best example is Pope Boniface VIII. Boniface. He is the what's called Pope during the Middle Ages, and he wrote an encyclical letter which is called Unam Sanctam, the only holy power, what's called Unam Sanctam Autocitatem, that means authority. The only holy authority belongs to the Pope. Both way. That means not only the spiritual, but also the temporal. All the power. Because God is the fullness of authority. And His authority is exercised through Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ appointed Peter as His representative on earth. And therefore, Peter is having all the powers. That means the spiritual, moral, temporal, all the powers. And even the Pope was arguing like this. This was the line of arguments. And whatever the power the civil authorities get, it is by the delegation of the Pope.
Oh, how interesting. It's like Mary Mediatrix of all graces.
And you know, there was the Frankish king, Philip IV, and Pope deposed him. Pope deposed emperor. And the emperor was so cunning, and the emperor became, and stood, it is said, he stood about, I think, 2 days in the cold winter before knocking the door of the Pope. Of course, the Pope, as the what's called a reconciliation. If somebody comes for reconciliation, then we have to do it. So the Pope had to open the door and reconcile with him, and then made him again, reinstated him as the emperor. But he had to travel from France, come to Rome, begging, kneeling before the Pope, begging to accept him, That such was the authority of the Pope during the Middle Ages. That has, so much of a transition from nothing to everything. Nothing to everything.
That shows you the power go to the head of the people.
Yeah, and now, afterwards, of course, they began to decline, and then, now it is now in the balanced position now. So, okay, we have to see a little bit what kind of this evolution is it. So, after that beginning is from Constantine. Then slowly, as I told you, Constantine donated, portions, huge portions of lands to Pope. And then the people who were working in that lands automatically came under the Pope. But not exactly civil authorities, but there is some kind of an authority can exercise, on that time. At that time, what we call tenets and things like that, And with that, during almost like in the 7th century, or at the end of the 6th century, that is in 500 onwards, even the structure of the society began to change. Now began a new structure of the society, what is called feudalism. So feudalism began to slowly from the 6th century onward, at the end of 500 onwards. And 600 is almost started the feudalism.
Was that throughout the Christian world? Or
Not only the Christian world, that has nothing to do with the Christianity, but it was a kind of a change that occurred in Europe. So the feudalism, what is feudalism is just like a pyramid structure, no? A pyramid. Because by that time, what really happened is this this Roman Empire began to disintegrate. By that time, the Roman Empire began to disintegrate mostly because there was a historical reason for that, because there were so many Germanic tribes, and these fierce fighting people, like for example Goths, Ostrogoths, Visigoths, Huns, Teutonics, then so many
my relatives?
Teutonics, no? Yeah, there are so many this kind of Germanic tribes, united, and they were so fiercely fighting people. And of course, we cannot say not cultured, but almost like not cultured as the Roman Empire, people who were in the Roman Empire. In culture means in what's called in education or in morality, and these people were not even Christians. And these people, their only idea was to fight. That's all. Their only job was fight. So they attack. Once the group comes and attack, take everything and go. That's all. That is the way they lived. And they began to pour mainly to Rome. For example, the Lombards. They almost conquered the northern Italy. Then the Goths, they conquered Spain.
North Africa too.
So North Africa. So like that, so many people, and they not only when they conquered places, they set up their own governments. And what happened? The Roman Empire, because it already disintegrated almost, could not resist all these things. And by the time already, as we know, Constantine transferred the capital of Roman Empire to Constantinople. And the emperor was already in Constantinople, and that was in the east, the present Turkey. And he could not really look into the affairs of the Europe. And he appointed a prefect, but he has nothing, before these fierce fighting people had nothing to do. And when, the Lombards came and attacked Rome, what really happened, there was nobody to, protect the Romans. There are already in what's called, as reality, it was under the Roman Empire, administered by the Eastern Roman Empire, emperor. But practically, nothing was done. When these people attacked, nothing was done. So, people were in a situation where they found there was nobody to protect them. Now, already see the papacy at that time having so much of land. So the papacy began a kind of a feeling that we have to protect our people. So once there was an incident is reported. For example, I think it was a Lombard king, for example, during the time of Pope Stephen III. The Lombard king Aistulf attacked Rome, and they were, these barbaric people, they just began to sack Rome, and nobody was there to protect. So
No Pax Romana.
nothing. It's already disintegrated. And what happened? What is the time now?
No, are you saying Mass?
No.
No. All right, thank you.
So I have mass there I have mass in my church at 8:30. So
There's Mass there at 8 o'clock for you.
yeah, and these people. What is the time?
22.
20?
20
Okay, and these people, there is an incident, Pope Stephen, when these people came, Pope Stephen wanted to, meet, he had no army, Pope has no army, had no army. So the Pope went directly, personally to meet the king of Lombards, Aistulf. And that was some kind of a daring, movement. And he pleaded the king not sack Rome. And he heard it.
He what?
He accepted his Pope's, invitation or, plea. Not attack Rome. Continue. Not more anymore. There is a story behind it. Of course, historically we don't know what is it, but there is a story behind. When Pope Stephen was meeting Astolph, the Lombard king, he saw there were two angels guarding Pope with swords.
Who saw that?
The king. The king saw two angels with him, with Pope. Even Pope did not know. Nobody knew. Nobody see. Only the king saw two angels holding the fiery, the sword. And the king understood the message. That means continue attack means God's intervention. So it is said Astolph, without any demand, backed, did not attack Rome and backed. And that gave Pope a tremendous power. That means the Romans began to consider the Pope is the one who is to protect us. Slowly.
What time period did
That is Pope Stephen in 752.
Pope Stephen.
Yeah.
Father, there's something that I need to kind of understand is at what point did the Bishop of Rome, that title, at what point did the title of Pope come about?
Pope means?
Pope.
Pope means, that's father, that's all.
Right.
Not only the title, the title Pope, not only, is taken by the papacy, the Roman pontiff, but that is also a title taken by the Patriarch of Alexandria.
Right, I know. But there was a time, something happened, an event happened where the Bishop of Rome kind of became dominant over European Christianity.
So that is the thing what we are going slowly.
Be patient.
So
I think this is your point though. How many times is the Pope referred to as the Pope of Rome?
I've never heard of it.
no, he never says that. That is a very popular name what we call him. His official name is the Bishop of Rome and Patriarch of the what's called the Roman the Church. His official name is that.
But the fact that it's in the common vernacular as the Pope of Rome,
Yeah, that's all.
it designates
That's why that's
that Pope is a common name.
Yeah.
That's why they designate the Pope of Rome.
so that's only. It is not his official name. No, he has nobody so many names, and the popes took a name for themselves. It is called Servus Servorum Dei. Servus Servorum Dei. Servus means servant. Servorum Dei means the servant of the servants of God.
Can you write it down?
In English?
This is Latin. No. Servus, Servus Servorum
Servus,
Servorum.
as in Latin.
Dei. That means servus, that is servant. Servant of the servants of God.
So that is his official title?
That is one of the official titles.
This is actually the Bishop of Rome.
And he is the Patriarch of Rome. Not bishop exactly, he is the Patriarch of Rome.
There is also another Bishop of Rome?
No. But he is the Patriarch of Rome because, the bishop is simply a title. Patriarch is the head of the, what is the question?
But certainly there were certain popes that actually propagated the title of Pope or the Vicar of Christ, like Saint Gregory and Saint Leo, who actually made it very clear that God wanted
That he...
as a Vicar of Christ here on
Yes.
earth. And then
So-
very clear in case it wasn't clear to them.
It's very easy for you, just to take your smartphone, then give in Google. See, the titles of Pope. It comes out, so many titles. So many titles, and one of them. This is taken by the popes themselves. The Servus Servorum.
It started with Jesus Christ. Didn't he say, I'm not here, I am here to serve?
Yeah, that maybe from that point of view they have taken it. Even though that's the only thing is that even though he is saying that he is Servus Servorum Dei, but in doing I don't know how much it is.
How about the bishop? How did they call him?
Bishop,
So that's it.
No. They don't have a title like this. The bishops, that's a very profane civil title. It was in the Roman Empire. That bishop, the title was already used as head of the district or something like that. It was not a religious title, the bishop. The title bishop is not a religious. We have taken it from very profane, from the day-to-day language. We have taken it.
From the empire.
Yeah. And then that one thing, what I said about this thing, then again, but this king, even though first time he accepted the request from Pope and he went back, but he came again. So Pope understood there is a constant threat from these people. So now the Pope began to see a new rising star in Europe. That is the Carolingian dynasty. That means already the Roman in France and Germany, altogether that place, there was a new kingdom was beginning to show up. So there were, when the Roman Empire began to disintegrate, the magistrates or the district mayors began to be the rulers, and one among them became very strong, and he is called Charles Martel, and his sons there is the Carloman and Charlemagne. We call he became really very he conquered all others and then became the new king of the Frankish kingdom. And he was converted into, already Charles Martel converted into Christianity, and that was in the 8th century, 7th century. And then his son, first Charles Martel, Pepin, and his son is then Charlemagne. So they were all Christians. They felt themselves Christianity is the only religion, and they began to promote it. Now, because they were Christians and then began to promote Christianity, Pope understood that they would be good partners. The Pope understood. So he, just personally went to meet him in France and requested help, and he promised. And what happened, then the second time when this Lombard king attacked Rome, already the Charlemagne's army came in and took even the territories of the Lombards and drove them away. And what the Charlemagne did, or Pepin, his son, even his father, what he did was he donated all these lands to Pope. That means almost all of Italy now came under Pope. And now, because of this donation, what happened, Pope now becomes the king, or what's called the sovereign of the land. Because it was given by the king, he has to set up government and things like that. And this is called the Papal States. So these Papal States, that is comprised mostly all of southern Italy, most part of the northern Italy, some parts of Spain, some parts of France, all these, some of the places came under Pope. Even inside, some of them were not. For example, Naples were not under Pope at that time. So like that, because, groups, were there. So, and thus, with the donation of Pepin and Charlemagne, the Papal States became a reality. I'm just, running fast. And in return, what happened, So these mayors, they were not real born kings. You know that. These mayors, Charles Martel, Pepin and Charlemagne, they were not really born kings. So they had always a kind of feeling that they are not legitimate. At that time it was all by king, ruling by, and they were not born in a kingly family, royal family. So as a part of legitimization of these people to be kings, what happened? Charlemagne came, or even Pepin, Charlemagne's, I think Pope went and, took part in many things there, but, they had a very good relationship. And Charlemagne came in 800, that is very important, 800, on Christmas time. Charlemagne came in Rome, and during the Vigil Mass of Christmas, what happened? Pope crowned him as the king of the Roman Empire.
The Holy Roman Empire.
And thus started Holy Roman Empire. And he was anointed with oil. He was anointed with oil as the king, and crowned him as the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, thus re-establishing the old Roman Empire. Thus, now, what happens? This act of anointing became what's called the authority for the Pope. Hereafter onwards, all the almost the kings were anointed by Pope, and thus papacy getting strength. On the other side, these kings protected papacy as their own. Thus, a very strong cooperation between state and religion, and it was almost like a theocracy. And what happened, sometimes there were frictions because some strong people, for example, some popes like Boniface, he wanted the all, because his idea was he was anointed by the Pope. Why? Because he has the fullness of authority, Pope. So therefore, whatever the authority the king gets, it is by the Pope. He understood. Some kings, very strong, so they considered papacy for their service. So many times the kings, asked favors or whatever they wanted to get from the people, and people were very religious at that time, and whatever the Pope said, people did. That's why even the Crusades, for example, when Pope called for Crusades, people poured out. Okay, that is a very important event by which the papacy became strong, and this the what's called the cooperation between state and the religion became a reality, and thus started it is already in the beginning stage of the feudalism and medieval age, and thus papacy already now. The whole of Italy was under Pope, and he was a sovereign. He was a king already. So from nothing to everything. From there onwards.
So this was kind of like the peak, was it the golden era of the Catholic Church?
We cannot say that,
Yeah, there's a steep dive. I think there was a real dilution of the teachings of Jesus Christ at that time. I mean, they weren't even following that.
And
with the feudalism.
Yeah, from here onwards, Pope considered themselves kings, and the cardinals, they were the princes.
Oh my goodness.
They were the princes. And the bishops, they were like princes. With the feudalism, the feudalism, the kings, they began to make use of the bishops also. So in their administration, so they became, what's called, the princes. This is so interesting to note. See, the bishops wearing their mitre, their crozier, and their, all these things. These paraphernalia, the spiritual, the Christian bishop, they had nothing like that. It's all from feudalism. Because the king, as I told you, feudalism, it is just like this, a pyramid. On the top, it is the king. Then he divides the whole nation, or his whole kingdom into, maybe 2, 3, or 4 big, who call, the princes or something like that. They are subdivided, They are subdivided. And one of them, was almost like these were on this end, this were, and the people, this is king, another group, this is a larger group, and this is the people.
Ironically, that was almost the same social structure of the Aztecs.
Oh.
And all Cortez did was replace the top.
And and the top, the Pope, the king had nothing to do, because all done by these people. And bishops were here, they were, given parts of the land. So when somebody becomes a bishop, he not only becomes the bishop, the head of the diocese, but also he gets a place where he has to administer the civil authorities. And collect taxes and distribute things, punish people, give favors and everything. Now the spiritual thing, what is the time? You have to say, I have no watch. 5 minutes more? 5 minutes. Okay. And the bishops, in order to become a feud, that's called feudalism. A feud, that's what is the word, feud?
Right.
Yeah, feud. He has to go to the feud before him, who is giving. So, as an authority, the feud, what's called the prince would give him a mitre, a crozier, and all these paraphernalia. These are simply the signs of, the signs, S-I-G-N, the signs of feudalism. And what happened when feudalism disappeared? The bishops kept it as with a new interpretation and as a signs of their work or their rank, something like that. So now, for example, we don't think when a bishop put their mitre, we don't think that is anything to do with the feudalism, but it was. It was given by his feud or the staff.
So it comes from there.
It's come from there.
Have the same-
It has nothing to do with all these, the paraphernalia, like the staff and the crosier and the mitre, and all these things are simply profane feudalistic signs. But you know what happened? Slowly we gave new interpretations. For example, the staff. What is the new interpretation? It is, he is the shepherd. So the crosier, it was with a cross. It is, he is totally dedicated to Christ. His mitre, he's the head of the church, head of the family, things like that. And this, what's called, what is the sash of the bishops? That's all simply feudalistic signs. It was.
Don't we see the same thing in universities with the gowns and the hoods and the different hats?
But haven't the recent popes, recently from the 40s on over here, haven't they tried to do away with that? Every new pope.
That's why I say, and the papacy, when somebody is elected, pope, and pope is elected, and there is a day for the coronation. There is a crown for the pope. There is a crown, and that is called tiara. No? Tiara. In Latin, I think, tiara. That means 3-step crown. 1, 2, 3. It's a 3-stepped crown. And Pope, during that day, on that day, he, put the crown himself, because somebody is putting, that means he is above him. So Pope crowns himself. And the first one, started in the Middle Ages, and crowning of this was called coronation. Coronation, no? And the first Pope who refused to do that was Pope John Paul I. From him onwards, the Pope refused to do crowning. So the Pope John Paul I said, this is not a crown of king, but he is servus servorum. He's a servant. So I don't crown. So after him, John Paul II, he did not do that. After him, then Benedict did not do, and then the present Pope. These are the 4 popes. They did not do that. So this is then. So what some of many say, for example, many things. Many things which was done by Pope Leo III, the crowning of Charlemagne in 800. Pope Leo III. Leo. So thus is the evolution from nothing to everything. And once the Pope papacy persecuted one by the emperors, maybe later after when it became a little bit of went in the other direction, and sometimes became a persecuting papacy in, for example, in Inquisition and things like that. So difference, sometimes all these happens. Okay, with that we finish papal state and things like that. I think, do you have this paper? Last time I gave you, I don't know whether you, if you want to have a copy of it, you can take it.
Take it.
And next time, if you have, I am going to finish the history part of it. So if you have some questions, for example, what is give me that, like crusades, Inquisition, or heresies, or anything like that, please let me know so that I can, when next time when I come, I can take, with all those questions. Just to let me know, I can prepare and come. I think almost like, we have finished the beginning of Christianity, the most part of, the important part of it. Now we understand how things evolved. Now we shall go back to our Bible studies. Okay? So next Sunday, next Saturday onwards, we will concentrate more on Bible. Okay?
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you so much.